If you were to ask me a few months back to describe how my life was going in one quote from musical theater, as an avid fan of the theater arts, I could probably spit out dozens of inspirational quotes like, "Even the darkest night will end, and the sun will rise," Les Mis, or, "When you're broken on the ground, you will be found," Dear Evan Hansen. But it would ultimately come down to one quote that I feel is the true representation of my experiences as a high school senior in December. It's all college applications and Doctor Who quotations. Mean Girls, the musical. Now, despite the fact that I've never once watched Doctor Who in my life, I could replace that name with any fandom that has helped me through some difficult periods. But as relatable as this quote from Mean Girls is, it's actually used to describe the most unrelatable group in all of North Shore High. The tragically, socially cursed mathletes. In fact, if we finish the quote that I cited earlier, it reads, "It's all college applications and Doctor Who quotations. They wear their awkwardness with stubborn pride." Why do we always assume that the geeks of our society have no social or real-world skills? Now, I recognize that Mean Girls is the epitome of stereotypes, and that every living soul at North Shore High is a perfectly molded archetype. But this pattern has been going on since the dawn of modern media for teens, whether that be in literature, in movies, in musicals, or on Disney Channel. I love early 2000s and 2010s Disney Channel and the blissful nostalgia that it brings me. But as I was watching the Disney Channel original movie Geek Charming a few months back for the first time in about 4 years, it dawned on me that the pop culture textbook definition of a nerd was once again being force-fed to me. In the movie, a sci-fi film superfan is confined to the miserable corner of the lunchroom with a group of social outcasts until he decides to make a movie about the school's popular girl. Suddenly, lo and behold, as if she were his angelic savior, he seems socially capable and several times more confident. But real-world nerds are the true saviors. They are the creators of the things we couldn't even imagine living without today. Martin Cooper, who oversaw the production of the first mobile phone in the 1970s, has credited the Star Trek communicator with inspiring his life-altering invention. Simon Lake was inspired by the work of Jules Verne in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to create his own submarine, the Argonaut. Where would these groundbreaking inventors be without the works of fiction that created a spark in them? Where would they be without their sense that the impossible is possible? Where would they be without their sense of unreality? Without their sense their imaginations are the source of what eventually becomes reality? Where would they be if they weren't so caught up in fictional delusions of what doesn't yet exist? Now, I digress, and I understand that not all those who immerse themselves in fiction are going to become trailblazing inventors. But there is another fallacy that needs to be addressed besides that of the incompetent nerd. And that is the assumption that those who indulge in fiction are escaping their real-world problems, choosing to live in fantasy rather than ground themselves in reality. But what if we could use fiction and self-projection onto fictional characters to face our most difficult challenges head-on, and with more strength and bravery than we could possibly muster on our own? We can learn so much about ourselves through the intimate observation we get to do of fictional characters. I've been lucky enough to witness this firsthand. I've been struggling with anxiety and panic disorder stemming from perfectionism and imposter syndrome since the beginning of 10th grade. Imposter syndrome involves the inability of a person to recognize their own accomplishments, but at the same time, the belief that their accomplishments are what determine their worth, and that life will fall apart if they don't continue to perform optimally all the time. This type of thinking, if left untreated, can lead to depression and burnout, both of which I still struggle with on a day-to-day basis. But I'm learning to cope, and one unexpected individual is helping me to do just that. Around August of this past year, in the midst of a global pandemic and a severe mental trough, I discovered Detroit Become Human, a story-driven, choose-your-own-adventure video game that is set in a futuristic world where androids accompany humans in their everyday tasks, condemned to lives of slavery. Mysteriously, increasing number of androids have been going deviant, or becoming sentient, gaining the ability to make their own choices and feel emotions. It's really quite fascinating. Now, I really don't play video games at all. My friends can attest to the fact that I can't do Minecraft for the life of me. But the intricate world the story created and the various directions in which the story could go were so intriguing to me. I spent hours watching playthroughs as though the game were a movie. Now, before I go on, just a quick disclaimer. I'm going to be talking about a game character in generalities without getting into too many specifics. But if you haven't yet played the game and you want to be super duper extra surprised, I suggest you tune out for a few minutes. Now back to our regularly scheduled TED Talk. As I was watching the game play out, I was particularly drawn to a handsome fellow with a few strange habits. Connor, an android himself, is an investigator and assassin programmed to hunt the deviants that claim to feel emotions. But as I watched Connor go through his missions, I noticed several peculiarities about him. He has nervous tics that an android really shouldn't have, such as playing with the coin he always carries around, his coat sleeves, or his tie. But it wasn't until Connor entered his mind palace, the virtual world literally inside his head, that I realized that Connor's story mirrors that of a person with anxiety and imposter syndrome. Connor is under constant supervision by a superior artificial intelligence named Amanda that resides within his headspace. She seems to provide some semblance of comfort for Connor, half-heartedly congratulating him when he performs up to par and checking in with him every so often about his missions. But even her congratulatory words are laced with the sinister poison of, "You could have done better." Amanda feeds off of and rewards self-deprecating comments. She scorns Connor whenever he expresses curiosity and questions why he has to do the things she is telling him to do. She persistently reminds him that he is nothing apart from a tool for his superiors, and that there will be chaos for the entire city if he doesn't complete his mission and obey his orders completely, without question, on top of the fact that he himself will be terminated. And I'm watching this thinking, a voice in your head that provides a false sense of security and validation while also constantly reminding you that you're nothing but the sum of your accomplishments and that you will die if you don't do everything it asks you to all the time without question. That sounds awfully familiar. It sounds an awful lot like the internal monologue that runs through my head when I'm panicking, because if I don't get a perfect score on this test, my teacher will be disappointed in me, my GPA will be cursed for the rest of the year, I won't get into a good college, and there will be chaos. Now, depending on how you choose to play Connor, he can adopt a variety of dispositions and make a multitude of decisions. But it ultimately comes down to whether or not he chooses to listen to the voice in his head. If he listens to the voice, obeying its every order, being Amanda's perfect little slave, he ends up being replaced and sent to his death. But if he chooses to be strong, defying the voice, doing what is right, despite how difficult that is for him, and navigating through the literal blizzard of doubts and feelings of inadequacy in his own mind, he ends up not only with his life, but also with a meaningful relationship. That's something I picked up on too. Having the capacity to choose this path for Connor essentially requires having a positive relationship with another individual who questions his machineness and who just happens to be a very, in Connor's own words, hard-boiled police lieutenant named Hank Anderson. Just like a person struggling with a mental illness, Connor requires a support system to remind him that he is more than the voice in his head, that he is human and not just a machine built to be perfect all the time. Connor loses this relationship if he prioritizes his mission. That's what really sold it for me. In the most spectacular sci-fi way, Connor parallels a person with anxiety and imposter syndrome. He's similar to me in a lot of ways, and not just because we both look really good in a tie, although that is clearly also true. Ironically, Connor the android is far more human than any of the walking, talking mannequins in Mean Girls or Geek Charming. He has real flaws, real doubts, and he encounters real mental struggles that are solved by more than just meeting the popular kid at school. He is forced to look within himself to find the answers to his questions when all Amanda will tell him is, do what I'm telling you to do. He is forced to distinguish his voice from that of Amanda and recognize that one of them is speaking his own truth and the other is feeding him lies and insecurities about a completely unattainable perfection. Watching Connor's story has helped me to put my everyday issues into perspective and examine not only the short-term consequences of not being perfect that my panic-ridden brain tends to focus on, but also the longer-term, more grave consequences of constantly expecting to be perfect. Connor is a self-projection. He's a cool and attractive character, and it's good fun for me to follow his storyline. But it has also helped me to realize that there are things we miss out on in life, like relationships with other people, when we pour all our focus into trying to be perfect. Throughout 10th and 11th grade, I didn't try to stop my panic spirals because I thought that worry would push me toward action, which would push me toward success. That was never the case. Recently, though, I've adopted a new outlook on panic attacks and intrusive thoughts, and now I've been working on stopping them using sensory exercises, because I understand now that extreme perfection isn't sustainable. So maybe it's time we erase the assumption that immersing ourselves in fictional universes and projecting ourselves onto fictional characters is a simple form of escapism. Find a fictional being that reminds you of yourself, whether in positive or negative ways. If you haven't found them yet, keep looking. They're out there. I guarantee you that there is something you can illuminate about yourself, or about your relationships with others, or about your mental well-being, just through painless observation of said character. And I guarantee you that there is something you can improve about your life. Even disregarding the self-reformational benefits of engaging with fictional characters and universes, fiction breathes life into the mundane aspects of everyday tasks and brings us joy. Listening to movie soundtracks makes doing your chemistry homework feel like saving the world, or at least building the foundations of a world savior plan. It makes doing your laundry feel as though you're doing chores for the king of Agrabah. It makes walking through a city feel powerful, like you are not only fighting to survive a dystopian world, but thriving. Why not feel like this? Why suffer through your everyday tasks with dread rather than being both effective and content? In favor of not feeling silly? Who's judging you when you're alone inside your own headspace? That elated feeling that we get walking out of a movie theater, that feeling like we can do anything, like we are the main character and we are important, can be applied to any and all aspects of our lives. Now, I'm not saying that we should be selfish and perceive ourselves as the center of the universe, because that's simply not true. What I'm saying is that each of us matters, and that each of us has the opportunity to make a difference in the world in one way or another. Imagine what we could do if we did feel as vital as a movie character, as though what we did always affected others, because it does. We can lead with kindness and bravery. We can make sacrifices for others. We can inspire others. We are not so different from our favorite fictional characters after all. It's time to stop the stigma against loving fiction as an adult and stop the assumption that as soon as we hit high school, our fantastical dreams are supposed to start fading away. Engaging with fiction could be the key to a life filled with innovation, satisfaction, vigor for everyday occurrences, a healthy cycle of self-improvement, and good mental health. You can have your happy ending without completely waking up from your wildest dreams. So maybe it's time that we hold on to our dreams and hit snooze for just a little while longer, if only to remind ourselves that we are the magical, powerful beings of our own stories. Thank you for your time.